A very good afternoon to everyone. This is Talib Khan and I'm your instructor for this course. I hope everyone is doing good. I'm audible. Okay, thank you so much for the responses. Okay, so how many of you have completed the lab? Please add me to the lab, Santosh. Santosh, whatever the name yesterday, whatever the name I have whatever the name is provided to me in the in the document, I have given the access to everyone. I hope now everyone have the lab access. Is there anyone who is having the lab access? Who is this? I still don't have access. I have dropped an email. Bhushan, can you please write your mail here? Because manually I have given the access to everyone. Those who have put the name in the in that. Let me check for you, Bhushan. That means you have not put your name in that document. Your name is not in the lab one. See, in the lab two, your name is there. Bhushan Adhikari. You have the access. Lab access is given to everyone. Whoever attending the session, lab access is given to everyone. Now I am copying this link, and this link is only valid for Bhushan. Please try with different links. Three labs are there for the this developing on AWS. Three labs are there. So maybe you are trying to lab one, but your name is in the lab two. So I have given the access to Bhushan. I have just showed how to check the access as well. Now, is there anyone who is not? Can you share the lab link again? Lab link is already shared. Can you see the pin chat? Pin comment? Pin comment is there. Can you see that? Use that pin comment to to see the lab. OneDrive doc, please. That is also already shared with you. Still don't have access. Please add to OneDrive. Add your name in the OneDrive document. I have given you the OneDrive document. Can anyone please paste the OneDrive document here? Okay, let me check for Guruman also. If your name is not there, that means you have not put your name in the document. Your name is not in the lab one. Let me check for the lab two. Okay, your name is not in the lab two as well. See, uh, Guruman, your name is already there. I have just shown you. See, in the lab three, your name is there. See, your name is there. Maybe you are trying to access with a different link. Okay, so that's all from my side for the lab part. Now all I have already shared, I have already given the access to everyone. I can assure that nobody is left in my class who is not having the access. Maybe you are trying with some different link. That's why you are not getting the access. All three links are there in the chat. Try to use these three links. If one is not working, try with second one. If second is not working, try with third one. If all the three links is not working, then paste your mail in the document. Then I will see and I will add your name manually. Okay, Santosh, your name is already added. Let me show to you also. Not in lab 1, not in lab 2. Okay, your name is not in the lab 3 even. That means your name is not there. That means you have not provided your mail in the document. Adding your name in the lab 3, K. Santosh, copying this student URL and pasting in a chat. Santosh, try with this link. Himangi Shimpi. Himangi, can you please? Okay, like I can see like a lot of the people are there whose like name is not there. So I cannot give the dedicated times to you. What you can do, just write your name on the document. This is a document. Write your name here, and I will see. Once I will give a break, I will see and I will add you manually. Okay, so let's start our next module. We have completed the. I think we are doing the database. Let me check my pen. If pen is working. It's working. Take a pen. So now we have already completed, like we are already started our DynamoDB, I think, and we have seen this. We have covered this as well, this as well, this as well. From here we will start. Like in study sessions, we are covered till yet. So can anyone give me a recap what we have covered yesterday? Only want a recap. What we have covered yesterday's session. Correct functionality of S3, use cases, components, bucket, event notification, tags, access control, access points, operations, DynamoDB intro. And one more thing you forgot, Venkata. We've also discussed about the pre-signed URL. Yeah, pre-signed URL access, AWS storage, S3 bucket, all those things we have covered in the yesterday's session. SDK steps, correct. So now you have some idea about the yesterday's sessions. Now let's start with our today's session with the DynamoDB features or DynamoDB benefits. So why we have chosen DynamoDB for our applications? Because DynamoDB is having these features. First feature is performance at scale. So this DynamoDB is a fully managed NoSQL database service that provides fast and predictable performance with seamless scalability. So you can use this scalability to meet your application's fluctuating capacity needs, as well as it is also serverless. Can anyone tell me what is serverless? If I'm saying that this DynamoDB is serverless, what this means? Server will be managed by the AWS, correct. So this DynamoDB is offering a serverless solutions. So there is a no need to require and or install or maintain any software. DynamoDB is also enterprise ready for the vital workloads. Enterprise ready means it is fast, flexible, and non-relational database for all the applications that need a consistent or single digit millisecond latency. So it is fully managed cloud database. Fully managed means basically, as you know, it is a non-relational database. So you can create a database table and you can set the target you want to use for the automatic scaling, and service will handle the rest. You are no longer to like need to worry about the database management task like provisioning, hardware provisioning, patching, and all those things. You are not responsible for those things. Also, it is having a feature of low latency queries. That means it is giving you the low latency. Like whenever you are performing any query, like some you are trying to like retrieve some data from the database, then your query will be inexpensive. So it is giving you the single digit millisecond latency whenever you are retrieving some data from the database. And it is also giving you the fine-grained access control. What this means? That means this DynamoDB integrates with the IAM for the security, or also you can assign some security credentials for each like this is basically like this fine grained access control is basically in the database. There are also some security credentials you are given to connect with your database. And for examples like also if you want, you can encrypt your data inside your DB as well. And apart from this, one more feature is there which is not mentioned here. Let me write it for you. It is also flexible. Flexible means it can shrink or like expand according to the workload. Now let's see the DynamoDB key concept. Okay, and folks, like if you are having any query, please note down your query. At the last, I will give you the chance, like increase volume. Let me see. Your voice is little slow for me. Is it for all or is it for everyone? I think from my side everything is good. Maybe from your side something is there. So try to like increase your volume or try to fix out the issue with like which is in on your side. So yeah, I'm mentioning that thing. It's quite good. Crystal clear. Okay. So what I'm saying, like if you are having any doubt regarding this DynamoDB, whatever I'm explaining, just note down your query. In the last, I will give you the 10 minutes for answering your questions. Because in the like in between, maybe it's not possible for me to to take your queries individually. So in the last, I will give you the times. And also we are like sort of time. We are only like this is the second last day of our session, and so we have to complete it within a given times. So I will give in the last, I will give you the some separate times to to ask your queries. Now let's talk about the DynamoDB. So as you know, this DynamoDB is also like basically this is follow like in the DynamoDB also we are storing our data in some JSON documents in the form of a key value pairs, and that data can also be stored in the tables. So this table basically contains items with attributes. Item You can think item as rows or tuples, and attribute is basically your columns. This is basically your items. This is basically your attributes. So this DynamoDB store the data in partitions. That means it is dividing a table into multiple partitions based on the partition key value. And this partition is a basically allocation of storage for table, which is backed by the SSD, and it automatically replicated automatically it is replicated across the multiple AZs. So this partition is also handled by the DynamoDB, like how the partition will be done on what factors the partition will be done. All those things will be taken care by the DynamoDB itself. So in this DynamoDB, we are having a partition key. On the basis of that partition key, we are dividing our data into multiple partitions. Apart from the partition key, we are having one more key, that is sort key. This one. Sort key is basically defined to store all the items in the same partition key value, which is physically close together the partition key. So these items can be ordered by sort key as well whenever you are running a query on your database. So it represents one to many relationship based on the partition key, and when then you are adding sort key as well when you are enabling a query. So sort key is also sometimes also known as the range attribute in your database. So till now, I have given you something about the DynamoDB. That is, we are having some partitions, and those partitions we are dividing in like on the basis of a partition key. We are also having one more key, that is sort key, that is also optional. It's up to you if you want to create it or not. So whenever you are like performing any query, when so you can use you can use these keys together, partition key as well as sort key. If you are using the both the keys together, then your query will be inexpensive. Now I will tell you more about the about these things. So we are having some items and as well as attributes as well. So items, items is basically your rows, and attributes is basically your columns. If I compare to the relational database, so each item is having some name, data type, value, and this item can have any number of attributes. Just like in a relational database, DynamoDB is not having any predefined schema. That means that schema is not fixed. Even if you want to add something in it after the creation of a table, you can do it. And it is having a different types of data types like scalar types. Scalar types means number, which is denoted by n, string, binary, boolean, and also it can be the list and map. So the document type is called can also represent a complex structure with the nested attributes in your JSON documents. And the size of item is the sum of length of its attributes, names, and values. So single item cannot be maximum of 400 KB. This is the maximum size of a single item, 400 KB. You cannot go beyond 400 KB. Now let's talk about the primary key. Can anyone tell me what is primary key? What is primary key? Ganesh, try to rejoin the meeting again. Yeah, it is a unique key system generated, which is basically uniquely defining some attribute inside your table. Correct. Now let me tell you. So this table is having a primary key. That primary key is basically uniquely identifying the each items in a table. So we are having two types of primary key. One is your partition primary key. Suppose when we are making our partition key as a primary key. This is my partition key. And when I am making this partition key as my primary key, then it is known as partition primary key. Second case is that when you are making partition key and sort key together as a primary key, then it is known as it is known as partition sort primary key. Let me tell you like both the things. So if I consider these options, partition primary key basically consists of a single attribute. That is your partition key. Whereas partition and sort primary key, it is having a two attributes. The first attribute is a partition key and second attribute is a sort key. So DynamoDB is basically building an unordered index of the partition key and sorted index on the sort key attribute. And the example, like this example, like notes table, in which primary key is composed of user ID and the note ID as well. This is your partition and sort primary key. It is composed of two attributes. So there is a therefore it is a partition and sort primary key. So for each user ID, there will be a multiple nodes. And the combination of user ID and note ID uniquely identifying the items in the tables. So by implementing these designs, your query will be inexpensive. Read and write throughput. Read and write throughput means we will talk about the RCU. RCU is basically read capacity unit, and we will also talk about the WCU, write capacity unit. RCU and WCU is basically a like throughput. Like to enable the high throughput, we are increasing the RCU and WCU. So to enable the high throughput and low latency responses, DynamoDB requires that you specifying the read and write throughput whenever you are creating a table. And this also ensures a predictable low latency response times. So DynamoDB is reserving the necessary resources to handle your throughput requirements. So if you are expecting any spikes in your workload, so you can set a higher throughput for that situation. So this RCU and this WCU, RCU is basically a read capacity unit, which is like providing the number of strongly consistent like reads per second of items to 4 KB in size. So if you perform eventually consistent read, you can use the half, like you can use the half the read capacity unit code. And for the eventually consistent read, one read capacity unit is 2 reads per second. So these values are basically the throughputs, like how efficient your database is whenever you are performing the read and write operations on your database. The higher the number of RCU and the higher the number of WCU, that makes your database more efficient. Now let's talk about the secondary index. Just like we are using a sort key to like we are choosing two attributes to like whenever we are searching any data in our table, so that is make it more efficient when we are using two attributes. Just like that, we are also having a secondary index. So some queries are there that cannot address the more complex data access patterns. So to address that type of request, we are using the secondary indexes. So if you want to perform if you want to perform a queries on the attributes that are not a parts of a table's primary key, so for that you can create a secondary index. And secondary index is of two types. One is global secondary index, another one is local secondary index. We will see each of the secondary index one by one. Sorry. Yeah. So secondary index is basically contains the subset of other table attributes. Whenever you are creating any index, you can specifying which attributes will be copied or projected from the base table to the index. So this DynamoDB is projecting the key attributes from the base table into the index. And if I talk about the two types of index, we are having a it's global secondary index and local secondary index. So let's see the secondary indexes one by one. First, let's talk about the local secondary index. Local secondary index is considered to be local because index is located at the same table partition as the items that have given partition key value. You can see this is my notes table, and this is the same partition of this is a partition of the same tables. So it is present in the same partitions, same table partitions. That's why its name is local secondary index. So it is increasing the efficiency of performing a query on your table. Now, if I talk about the global secondary index, in the global secondary index, it is considered as global because the queries on this index can span all the data, all the data in a table across the all partitions. Means they are talking about the all the partitions. How if suppose seven partitions are there of my data, so it can be this global secondary index can be in any partition, can be in first partition, second partition, third partition, fourth partition, fifth partition, and sixth partition. So that's why its name is global. So there are some characteristics of global secondary index is also there. Like it can have a partition key and optional sort key that are different from a partition key and a sort key of original table. And there is a no need to key values to be unique. It can be deleted also. So these are the some like characteristics of a global secondary index. Now let's talk about the adaptive capacity. Adaptive capacity is basically you are enabling your DynamoDB to run your imbalanced workload. See, for my table, four partitions are there. Partition 1, partition 2, partition 3, and partition 4. And every partition is having a 400 WCU. 100 for this, 100, 100, 100, 100. It is having a 400 WCU throughput. So this 400 is evenly shared across four partitions. So this sharing allow each partitions to sustain up to 100 WCUs. But what actually happening? Partition 1, partition 2, and partition 3, they are receiving a write traffic of 50 WCU, 50 write capacity units, 50, 50, 50. And partition 4 is receiving a write capacity unit like partition, this partition 4 is like receiving a 150 WCU per second. So this partition 4 is the hot partition that can accept a write traffic. So it has unbelched capacity and it can throttle the traffic that exceed your 100 WCUs per second. So this DynamoDB adaptive capacity is basically respond by increasing the partitions for capacity so that it can sustain the higher workload of 150 WCU without being throttled. So the total provision capacity is 400 and its total consumed capacity is 300. How it is 300? Yeah, like 150 for this and 50 for this and 50 and 50. So, but the so how what actually happens? So like when there's a like more traffic on the one partitions, so it can like increase. I can increase my WCU or the RCU because the total is 400. Makes sense to everyone? WCU, sorry, the adaptive capacity. Adaptive capacity is basically is there to balance the like for the imbalanced workloads when we want to when we want to balance the imbalanced workloads. So for that we are using adaptive capacity on your partitions. Okay, let's move forward. Now, how to access the DynamoDB? So to access the DynamoDB, various options are there. You can use console to access the DynamoDB. You can download the NoSQL workbench. You can use the DynamoDB local. You can also use the PartiQL editor. You can use CLI. You can use SGK as well. These are the different methods to interact with the DynamoDB. Now, first we will talk about the NoSQL. So this is the NoSQL workbench. It is a DynamoDB it is for the DynamoDB. It is a cross-platform and it is giving the client-side GUI for modern databases development and operations. Currently, it supports both DynamoDB as well as the Apache as well as the Amazon key spaces. So this NoSQL workbench is unified visual ID tool that provides the data modeling, data visualizations, and query development features. So you can use those features to design, create, query, and manage the DynamoDB tables. So with the help of this NoSQL workbench, you can interact with your DynamoDB and query your data. And the tools are basically like data modeler, visualizer, operation builder, all those things you can do with the help of NoSQL Workbench. And it is also having a support of PartiQL support. So the summary of the slide is like you can use this NoSQL Workbench to interact with the DynamoDB. It is giving the graph. It is providing the graphical user interface to the user. Okay, so before proceeding with this slide, I got a attendance link and I am sharing the attendance link with you and giving you the 5 minutes to fill your attendance. Pasted the attendance link, giving you 5 minutes to fill your attendance. So Lakshmi, I will take all the queries and in the last of the module. In the last of the module, I will give the 10 minutes to ask your queries. No worries. Fill your attendance, all of you. Done with attendance? Okay, so I'm moving forward. Just mark attendance. So now we will talk about the DynamoDB local. So this DynamoDB local is basically, yeah, you can download the version of a DynamoDB in your local machine. So with that DynamoDB local, after the downloading this DynamoDB local in your local machines, you can develop test applications without accessing the DynamoDB web service in the AWS console. Instead of that, the database is self-contained on your computer. So whenever you are ready to deploy your application in productions, remove the local endpoints in the code, and then it points to the DynamoDB web service. So this local version basically helps you to save on throughput, data storage, and data transfer fees. So you don't need internet connections while you are developing your applications. So this DynamoDB local is available as a download, as a Apache Maven dependency or as a Docker image. So you can use this DynamoDB local as well, and this is how you can use that. Like see, the I am changing the endpoint of the DynamoDB. Then this particle is also one of the feature of the you can say the one of the feature of the DynamoDB. So when you are interacting with the DynamoDB using this particle, so with the help of this particle, you can it is basically SQL compatible. So you can run SQL queries on your non-relational database. As you know, this DynamoDB is a non-relational database. So with the help of this particle, you can run the SQL queries to fetch your data. You want to select something, insert something, update, delete data in the DynamoDB table. So you can do all those things with the help of particle. And you can also easily interact with the DynamoDB tables and run some ad hoc queries. So to run these particles, you can use DynamoDB console. I will show you this thing also in the console. You can use AWS CLI and DynamoDB APIs as well. Now, how to interact with the AWS CLI? So this is this is the CLI command. How you will put the item. Basically, I am inserting some items in that table. Table name is notes table. Now also I am also like defining the attributes like user ID, student, note ID. So I am defining all the things here. And on the basis of this data, this type of table is created inside my DynamoDB. Now let's see SDK supports for DynamoDB. So this diagram is basically providing a high-level overview of DynamoDB application programming using your SDK. So you can write your application using AWS SDK for your programming language. And each AWS SDK is providing one or more programmatic interface for working with the DynamoDB. So this specific interface available depend on which programming language and which AWS SDK you want to use. So this AWS SDK is constructing for the use with the low level API or the high level API as well. So whenever DynamoDB is running a request, if the request is successful, you are getting a response like 200 OK. And if it is not successful, then you are getting some code like 403 or 404, your request is forbidden or not found error. So each AWS SDK is providing important services to your applications. When you want to format the HTTP request or you want to generate some cryptographic signatures or forwarding your request to the DynamoDB endpoints. And when you're extracting the results from those responses. In this SDK, two main important things are there. One is object persistence interface, another one is document interface. Let's see these components of the SDK in detail. So this is object persistent interface and document interface. So this object persistent interface, it is a high level interface, and this document interface allow for the complex mapping of data types. So these two components are responsible for mapping the data types. This object persistent interface and document interface. Like which data type I am using. So for that, this is responsible. Now we will let me give you the comparison between the three different interfaces: object persistent interface, document interface, and low level interface. First, let's talk about the object persistent interface. So this AWS SDK for .NET, Basically, they are providing an object persistent model that you can use to map your client-side classes to your DynamoDB tables. And to save your client-side objects to the tables, this object is basically persisting the this object persistence model also providing the DynamoDB context to like an entry point to the DynamoDB. So you can also access the tables, you can perform various CRUD operations and run some queries also as well. If I talk about the document interface is providing the document interface that you can use to perform the like your CRUD operations like create, read, update, delete on the tables with the or indexes. And if you don't have a document interface, so there's a no need to specify any data type. With this document interface, you don't need to if you are using this document interface, there is no need to specify the data type in descriptor. These data types are implied by the semantics of the data itself. So there's a no need to describe those data types. And if I talk about the low-level interface, this low-level interface is basically providing a low-level interface for the DynamoDB. Like it is having some methods which is closely mapping your like closely mapping or resembling your low-level DynamoDB API request. So this is the difference between the object persistent interface, document interface, and low-level interface. They all are on the backend. They all are used to mapping your data types. Now let's talk about the DynamoDB dependencies. So these are the DynamoDB dependencies. For the Python, we are using this Boto3 DynamoDB conditions, Boto3 DynamoDB types. For the .NET, we are having DynamoDB version 2 model. In Java, we are using DynamoDB version 2 just like this. com.amazon aws.service.dynamodb v2 Amazon DynamoDB. So this type of dependency we can use in our code whenever we are interacting with whenever we are interacting to the AWS services using your SDK. Now let me show you how we can how we can interact with the DynamoDB. So when you are trying to interact with the DynamoDB, first you will make a service client. As in the S3, we are creating a S3 service client. Just like that, we are creating a DynamoDB service client to interact with the DynamoDB service. So just like this, first we are obtaining a client builders, then we are obtaining a client vendor for local installations, and then we are creating a default client. So this is the code how like this is a Java example how we can create a client in your like how you can create a DynamoDB service client in Java to interact with the AWS SDK. Sorry, AWS DynamoDB using the SDK. Now let me also show you the Python example. This is the Python example, how you can create a DynamoDB service client. So we are using this Boto3 client, DynamoDB, and then after that we are creating a resource. So this is a Python example. So once your client is like client creation is done, then you are performing some like you are requesting for some data or you are performing some operations. So how the flow of the requesting, how the flow of that request and response looks like, let's see. So this DynamoDB is low level API that is proceeded the that is a protocol level interface for your DynamoDB. So at this level, every HTTPS request is correctly formatted and carry a valid signatures. And this AWS SDK is constructing a low-level DynamoDB API request on your behalf, and then it is processing the response from the DynamoDB. And this capability basically lets you focus on your application logic instead of a low-level details because all these things will be managed by the AWS. That's why we are calling it. That's why we are calling this DynamoDB as a serverless. Now let me show you a request format. So this is how we are requesting something. So this is a request format, like we are requesting some get item. So this example, this authorization header contains the information required for the DynamoDB to authenticate the request. That means all those things are here, the credentials, the signature, all those things are here there, like who is processing the request. Then this is our like get item operations, like we want to get something in this DynamoDB. So and This is basically your payload JSON models. This is your request. Now let me show you response as well. This is the format of a response. Like if I'm getting this type of response code is 200, that means everything is okay. I get the response. So this DynamoDB is processing it and returning a response like this. So this response payload is contains the result for the operations as this is shown in the examples. Like I want the student A data who's having a note ID 1 and the note is hello world. So that's why I am like getting the response of this particular request when I am trying to fetch this get item. Yeah. Response error codes are also there. So like we are having error codes, like if I get the error code like 200, that means everything is okay. 400 bad request. Bad request means like there is like some client side issue. Client error is there. 400 means it is a client error. Maybe like you don't have a sufficient permission or your syntax is not valid. The request of the syntax of a request is not valid. That's why I'm getting a 400 request. So if the request is successful or unsuccessful, this DynamoDB will give you the status code. Or if any exception is there, it is also giving the exception name as well and error message as well. So this is the error message. Request resource not found, user not found. And you can see the also you can see the name of the exception. Resource not found exception. So whenever you are performing any query, you will get these three things: status code, exception name, if there is an exception, and if there is an error, error message is also there. If everything goes right, then you are getting the response like this, like this. Okay, now we are having a knowledge check. So before going to the knowledge check, let me take your queries. I think team chat is hang for me. Let me see with my phone. Yeah, you can ask your queries now. I can see. How can we set the high throughputs? Is it based on some logic or based on the time intervals? See, like throughput you can set by the WCU and the RCU. Suppose like on the time of the like big billion days sale or Flipkart sales, there, at that time there will be a high throughput on your website. So for that you can set the provision throughput for that times. Like from 9th of July to 12th of July, the throughput of my database is like 100 WCU, 100 RCU. So you can set like this. What if DynamoDB is down? As in the initial slide I have shown you, they are practicing the multi-AZ deployments. So that's why if the AZ goes down, there will be a standby instance is there. A standby DB is there. So that will take care. Also, you can create a read replica. Ad hoc means the like basic commands: insert, update, delete. Object persistence means object is there uh, uh, as data persistence, like I'm saying that data is persistence for the for the RAM or ROM, just like this. We can say that it is object persistence. Short key is ordered or unordered. Short key is can be anything. It is the option, like it is a optional key. So it's up to you. Adaptive capacity, can you really can you throughput data transfer speed, so when it increases we can access faster, right? Correct. Local secondary index, global secondary index is quite confused. Could you please explain again? Local secondary index, we are creating local secondary index in the same table, in the same partition in which you are working. Global secondary index, suppose you are having a 7 partition of your table, so you can use the global secondary index in any of that table, in any of the partition. Adaptive capacity, basically you are increase like you are like suppose the total WCU capacity of my 4 partition is 400, but partition 4 is having a write capacity of only 100 WCU. and one suppose in any case there is a more traffic on partition 4 only, so it will not going down. In that case it will use the capacity of other partitions. That is your adaptive capacity. Can we build data warehouse with the DynamoDB? For to build a data warehouse, we are having another service that is named as Redshift. And we will see that thing in later. If you're asking, so we are doing the same thing with the help of a Redshift. What was S and N in the request? S and N is the data type. S is basically a string, N is number. Whenever I'm defining the attributes and items, so I have to also define the data types. Is there any limit or cost for uses of the lab? No, those labs are provided to you for your hands-on experience, for your hands-on. So like they are not charging you for the labs. How can we know on which partition traffic is more? You can see those things in with the DynamoDB console. Can you repeat what is partition key and sort key? Partition key is the key on the basis of that we are creating a more partitions of the same table. Sort key is basically like a helping key which makes your query inexpensive. Please explain once again. Parimala, I am saying that this S and N, whenever you are creating a data, whenever you are inserting some data into your table, so you are giving a name like note ID. So I have to also define the note ID, the data types. Which type of data I am storing in the note ID? It is string type, it is number type, it is Boolean, integer. So this S N is basically a string and number. Okay. Now we are having a knowledge check. Single item means one complete row of record. One complete, yeah, correct. Can someone please share the attendance form? Attendance form is already shared, Diksha. Oh, let's have a knowledge check. Okay, question number one is there for you. You have to choose it is right or wrong, like is it true or false. Beneath Jogi not seeing your screen. Is it for all? Is it for all? You are not able to see my screen? Everyone is saying no. So how we can see false. Okay. See, Vineet, most of the participant can see my screen. That means there is some issue with your side. So please try to sort it out. Partition is created within the table. Correct, Shubh. We are creating our partitions for your one table, one for your one DB. We are creating multiple partitions. Everyone is saying false, false, false. Correct. Still, people are saying true. Like Deepa is saying true. And let me see. Irshad is also saying so, okay. You are talking about the question number two. Let me see who's saying for two for the first one. Second one, true, true, true. Correct. Now, can anyone explain why it is false? Second one. Let me give you the hint. They are saying that DynamoDB is basically storing the data in partitions and divide the table items into the partitions and divide the tables items into the multiple partitions based on the partition key values. And you are saying that like in the statement they are saying that DynamoDB stores the data in the rows and divides the table partitions into multiple partitions based on the partition key value. That's why it is false. Third one, true, 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 true. Let's see. The third one is true. Each DynamoDB item attribute has some name, data type, and value. Correct. An item can have any any number of attributes. Correct. Fourth one, they are talking about the RCU, and this thing is clearly mentioned on the PPT as well. It is true. What about the fifth one? Can you explain second? Okay, I will take your query. I will explain the second one more time. Fifth one, true, false, 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 false. Most of the people are saying false, so it is false. Why it is false? Because that downloadable version of the DynamoDB, you can develop and test your applications without accessing the DynamoDB web service. You can do the same things in your local machine. What about the sixth one? Everyone is saying false. Okay, let me read the statement for you. With an AWS SDK document interface for DynamoDB, you do not need to specify a data type descriptor. This thing I have already said to you. I have already mentioned this thing when I am explaining the comparison between the object persistence and document persistence. Yeah, that's why it is true. When I am using this document interface, that means there is a no need to define the data type, not data type descriptor. So we are done with our module number this. Yeah, before someone is asking a question, as we are covering ECS and EKS also. Not in detail, but give you some overview. Yeah, some people are asking about the statement number two. So statement number two, they are talking about the we are storing our data in rows and in rows and dividing the partition. So it's not like that. DynamoDB is a non-listener database. We are storing our data in the JSON documents. So that's why that one is false. For the representations, like I'm showing you how to how I am creating our database into the tables. Let me also show you the let me also show you the DynamoDB demo. Then the things are more clear to you. Let's see. See, this is the DynamoDB. Let's create a dashboard. Let's create a table in the DynamoDB. So I'm creating a DynamoDB table. Let's give a name as demo table. See, here I can see the partition key and the sort key. So I am choosing employee ID as a partition key. Employee ID is number. Sort key, I am giving name, which is a string, keeping everything by default. Let's create this table. See, table is created. Table is created. Now go to the explore table items and go to create items. Now here I will create a item. I'm giving employee ID 1. Let's take a name of Shubh Lakshmi. And adding one more attribute string. Let's take address. Value I'm giving Delhi. One item is created. I will create two more items. Employee ID 2. Name I am taking is Brajesh. Let's take one more entry. Let's take its phone number, giving a random value. Create item. Create one more item. Employee ID 3. Name I am giving. Let's take a name of Nitin and adding one more attribute like let's say department. Developer. See, my table is created. Let me a little bit zoom in, zoom out. You can see the table. You can see the employee ID 1, 2, 3, Subh Lakshmi Delhi, and you can see like there is no fixed schema is there. There is a null value for Birjesh address, null value for Nitin, null value for phone number here also. So that means the schema is not fixed in the DynamoDB. And now let's see how to query in our tables. Let's see, I want a data whose employee ID is 2. So if I run this query, likewise, you can see the data of the whose employee ID is 2. So this is just like this is a one very short example, one very like just a example. It's not a very long database. Only three entries are there. So you can see employee ID 2, name, Rajesh, phone number like this. If I want someone whose employee ID is 3 running, so I can see this also. If I want, yeah, I can also include the sort key as well. Right now, I'm just using a partition key for for searching my data. If I want, I can also use the sort key as well. Okay, two options are there, query and scan. Can anyone explain what is the difference between the query and scan? Can you show the JSON view? Yeah, I can show the JSON view of this also. See the same thing in JSON view. Employee ID N. You can see this N is number. Name S. S is basically your attribute type, which is string, Nitin. Department S, string, developer. Maximize. Okay. We can pass any attribute. It's not like that. You can pass, can we apply query or on only primary key or sort key, or we can pass any attribute for querying. For querying, you are using like a sort key as well as the partition key. Sort key is optional, partition key is mandatory. Correct. So most of you are know the difference between the scan and query. So now instead of a query, I will scan the whole table. See, right now I can see only one entry. Now what I will do, select this scan, run this scan, and it will fetch all the data inside my table. So this is a simple demo of DynamoDB. At the times, I am saying the particle. So see, this is the particle editor. Here I can run the SQL commands, SQL queries I can run, and with the help of the SQL queries, I can see the result. This is a particle editor, which is giving the facility to run to fetch your data with the help of SQL queries in the non-relational database. As you know, DynamoDB is a non-relational database. Okay, so that's all with this module. Now let's start our next module. Before starting our next module, we will having a
Salib,
break of 5 minutes. Yeah.
hello.
Hello.
Salib Rahul this side from TrenoKit.
Okay. Yes,
Before
Tom.
we, Yeah, before we you give a break, I just wanted to make small announcement. Yeah. So this is regarding to all the learners who are attending this training before you take a break. Uh, we have noticed back end that few of you are still facing any issues, if any, for redeeming the student guide. If yes, let us know. Put up your name details in the comments and we'll
Yeah,
get it
see,
sorted out.
yeah, at that time, lot of queries are there. Now, see, Rahul is there. You can ask your queries
Okay.
regarding the verification link and all those things. Please
Hmm.
ask.
Yeah. I will also get our IT team person also in the group so that he can also support us. Yeah. Meanwhile, you can ask the queries.
See, one person named is Adapa. Adapa, can you please show your yeah, see, Sonak is also saying verification mainly not coming. Rahul, are you there? Are you able to see
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
chats?
yeah, yeah. Okay. Verification email not coming. Okay. Student guide opening. Pratik has mentioned student guide opening sometime and also not okay. Okay. I'm getting back to that verification page. Okay. So what we'll do is, Ayan, we will make you the moderator. You can share your screen. We'll try to resolve it real time right now. So that are you there? If you can help us make him the moderator.
Yes, Rahul.
Yeah, just try.